Hello, everyone, and welcome to the April 11, 2023 Pleasant Ridge City Commission meeting. May we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I have roll call, please?
Commissioner Budnick?
Here.
Commissioner Lenko?
Here.
Commissioner Perry?
Here.
Commissioner Schmier?
Here.
Mayor Scott?
Here. And welcome to the seat.
Thank you.
We've had some changes around the office. Kirsten has just really been helpful in getting things up and running into April, and thank you.
Thank you.
Public discussion, items not on the agenda.
Good evening, Mayor, Commission, staff, and viewers. Ted Zachary from 68 Devonshire, and I have a little report about recycling. We're having an event, and I'm really proud to say that it's in the Ridger, and it's about Earth Day. It's basically having your non-wanted items be placed on the curb between 10 and 4 on that Saturday. And what else? That's a fun day to declutter and pick up a bargain, perhaps.
And that's the 22nd, correct?
22nd.
Okay. Of April.
Saturday.
Of April. Oh, so in 2 Saturdays.
Yeah, coming up real soon. I'm excited about it,
Mhm.
and I have a visual aid.
Oh, good.
Now, this is something that I no longer want, so I'm gonna put this on the curbside on Saturday, and hopefully somebody will pick it up and enjoy it, as opposed to this going into the landfill. I love it.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask, are you serious about that specific item?
I think Alex wants it.
Because I will literally take that.
You don't have to wait until the 22nd.
Well, come on up, 10 o'clock. Okay.
Congratulations.
Somebody said I do this so that you have a memorable moment, so you can remember this.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if I did this, you'd really remember it. Me standing on this trampoline, giving my report. But I won't do that.
You will always be our little tyke.
Thank you. Any questions?
So, Mr. Zachary, thank you very much. I signed up for the Ferndale Free Cycle after your last presentation about this, and there are really great items all the time being offered up by folks. It is,
Yeah.
and it's nice. There are a lot of Pleasant Ridgers, a lot of
Yeah.
people from Royal Oak and Huntington Woods on there, and so many different things. Everything from beds, like bed frames, all those weird things that we all end up with. So
Yeah.
this is that is a great site, and I think Saturday, April 22nd should be a really good day.
Yeah, I hope it's good weather. It should be, and
Yeah.
it's great. Oh, and by the way, if you don't have anything to put out, if you have Netflix, watch the movie Game Changers.
Okay.
Okay.
There's
One way to celebrate Earth Day.
Well, it's cool because there's a map of all the different people have registered
Oh, very
to be
good.
on it too.
Well, someday maybe Pleasant Ridge will do the same thing too.
Yeah.
We wanna do
Luckily,
that.
we get to interlope onto the Ferndale one, so it works out.
So,
I have shared that map too, so people can see the map and then add themselves to the map too. So I've
Oh,
started
good.
to spread that around too.
Oh.
And people all the way in like the south part of Royal Oak, the west side of Royal Oak Park. So and there's even some Pleasant Ridge folks on there too.
Oh, good.
I'll put my
Yep.
name on
so
there.
you have to go to the website?
Yep, and it's on the Facebook post.
Oh, Facebook. Okay, thank you.
Made and shared. You're welcome.
This is better than I thought.
I know. Thank you for letting us know about this, Ted.
Thank you. I'm so delighted. Hopefully next year will be great too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Were there any other items for? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Deb Hemme from the library. I wanted to highlight a couple of programs that we have coming up. In 2 days, on Thursday, we are working with the Huntington Woods Anti-Racism Committee, and we are doing a panel discussion on diversifying your neighborhood. We have someone from, a representative from the Michigan Realtors Association, someone from, I believe, the Oakland County Fair Housing Commission, and a third person that I forgot to write down, sorry. But anyway, it'd be a good discussion. That's this Thursday evening at 6:30. We are kicking off our summer reading program on June 3rd. That's for babies through adults, with a mad science explosions something anyway for kids on June 3rd. And for the first time, we are having a battle of the books for teens that'll kind of be concurrent with summer reading. We're working together with the Berkeley Library, and that the books are posted right now online if kids want to start reading, and then the battle will take place on July 13th. The other thing we're looking into, one of your residents came to the library and suggested that we have a drop-off location here for books, that people could return their books here and then we would pick them up. So I've been working or talking a little bit with Shawnee. I'm thinking that the rec center is a nice centralized place. Lots of details to work out. So if anyone is watching and gives you any feedback, or if they want to contact me directly, I would love to hear feedback as to whether this is even something that people would like. But I think it's kind of a cool idea. That's all I have.
Nice.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. And I guess my only question on that would be if, like, Shawnee checking it in would check the book back, you know, like as far as timing and accrual of late fees, et cetera. Like, that would be super convenient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll check back in to see what comes up.
Yep.
Yeah. Were there any other
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So I was conscripted by Mike Audette to come and ask a question. He's at 13 Kensington. My name is Jay Ahmed. I'm from 92 Kensington. I'm just going to read what he texted me. Says, can we, it has to do with the water infrastructure project. Can we please have all the test data that has been collected and tested for all homes with existing lead pipes in Pleasant Ridge, and also a complete list of all homes and addresses with lead service lines, and the location of other lead lines anywhere in the city? Thanks. I think, just in speaking to Mike, his point was that he's a bit concerned about the potential health hazards with the continued lead lines. And I thought I remember when we had the discussion way back when what the results were, and they were well below what was abnormal for, you know, what was considered safe, I guess. And in talking to Mike, Mike's thrust of the point was there is no safe lead level. I will leave that to the commission. I don't have a science degree or understanding as to how lead affects the polity and accumulates. If the commission is confident that none of us are being poisoned, then I'm confident too. But Mike apparently has a concern about it. My personal only question was, because I haven't been here for a while, is what is the status of it? And is work going to start on Kensington sometime soon, or is it going to be maybe next year? I heard someone tell me that they're waiting on potential additional funding through the feds, which would be awesome. But anyway, thanks for letting me talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
You would like to cover it now, or in the manager's report, or?
Yeah, I can cover it now.
Okay.
So I believe that we published the data for properties that had a known or suspected lead line. I think that's available on the website. It's out there. It was part of the water infrastructure millage information. It should still be up. I'll double check and make sure. But
I thought I remembered that.
yeah, we do.
But
We
if
do.
Yeah, if you could,
Mhm.
just because I know Mike's going to be checking.
Yeah. And that would be on the water page on the website, if it's anywhere. So I'll double check, and if it's not there, I'll make sure that it's there because we have the spreadsheet. The lead service testing, we are required to do 10 locations, and we have to do the same 10 locations every year. That's or Eagle. I almost said DEQ, but it's Eagle standard. They set all the parameters for how we do our lead lead and copper testing. So our highest result it's the 90th percentile from all of your lead results is your reported number. The action level currently at the federal level and the state level is 15 parts per billion lead. And our 90th percentile result has been typically around 5 or 6 parts per billion lead, so well under the action levels. The state changed the rules, and the action level in Michigan is dropping to 12 parts per billion from 15, and I think that takes effect in 25. So we've never had any issues with lead. Is the question of any amount of lead being in your water being safe? I don't know. I can't offer an opinion on that. We do what the regulations and the regulators tell us. In terms of scheduling, so let me fast forward to the end. So yes, we did receive a $650,000 federal earmark for the Kensington water main, which is a great thing, but it has significantly backed up our schedule for getting the project done. Even though it was earmarked and approved by Congress, we still have to go through an application process with the EPA to actually get that money awarded. And as part of that application process, there's a number of hoops that we've had to jump through, which is surprising, given that we're replacing a 100-year-old water main that's already in the ground. But we have to get state SHPO review, that's State Historic Preservation Office. We had to do a SHPO study to make sure that we weren't destroying or disturbing a historic asset by replacing a water main that's already in the ground. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service review and DNR certifications are also required. So we've gotten those done, we've submitted them, and are awaiting responses. Once we get those back, then we can formally apply to EPA to actually get the grant, and then once we get the grant, then we have to get the grant award process. So I don't have a timetable for when we're actually going to have this money. We can't start any work until the money's awarded, or else it's not a reimbursement grant. You have to have that money allocated in advance and approved before you start the project. There's federal bidding requirements that are higher and different than what we would normally do, so that's going to increase the project cost, but there still will be a net benefit. So we've been at the mercy of federal timetables for this, and federal timetables operate in years, not months, so unfortunately that's where we've been. The water main plans and permit application are in the review process, so those will be going to Eagle. They went through Oakland County Water Resource Commission. Now they're at SACWA. Once SACWA signs off on them, they go to the state for approval. So that'll be done in plenty of time to bid the project out. So I don't know what the timeline is. I can't make any promises because we don't have a reliable timeline. The good news is this is we have 23 water mains that we have to replace. This has been a 20-year timeline, so the overall timeline is still intact. We're starting on Kensington, and so the start on Kensington has been backed up, but the next up is Oakdale. That's scheduled for fiscal year 25, likely to start in the fall of 24, and that's still the target for that one because that's unaffected by these requirements. There's no federal grant for that one. So overall, we're still on target. We're still working the plan. It's just this has been a frustrating beginning to get this going. We have been hoped to have been under construction already. But
Can I just ask one additional question? Yeah, I vaguely recall that there were state mandates about when we're supposed to replace these lines.
Yeah.
Is that something that they have given us some concession on, or?
So pretty much everybody has missed their required lead service replacements. The state set what is probably, quite frankly, an unrealistic requirement for replacements. We're supposed to be replacing 5% of all of our lead service lines each year. For us, that's difficult because we have to do the water mains in conjunction with the lead service line, so that creates some challenges. A lot of other communities where they've already replaced the water mains, you just have to do the private portion of the service line from the sidewalk to the house, so you can do those without really interrupting anything. We have to replace the water main that's under the street, so it's much more involved process. We reported to the state that we're not meeting our deadline this year. We gave them the explanation of we're going to replace 70 plus lead service lines on Kensington next year, and at that point we'll be ahead of our 5% per year schedule. And like I said, We use the Water Resource Commission for our water and sewer maintenance now. They operate water systems for many Oakland County communities. So you actually pay your bill to them instead of the local community, and all of their communities have missed their lead service line replacement requirement.
There's no punishment for that.
There has not been, no. So, everyone's working towards it, but, the state can mandate something that's not practically feasible. And
And
I
our
remember
intent,
talking about that a lot when
Yeah.
this issue came up.
and our intention is clear. It's not that we're trying to avoid doing it.
Right.
It's that it's all the timing associated with it.
Exactly. And we explained this year, we had a federal grant. It's changed our timeline for when we can get the work done. It's coming, it's budgeted, the plans are there, they're in the approval process. We're working on it.
Any chance we get more money out of the feds?
Out of the feds, no, probably not. This was a federal earmark through Congressman Levin's office. We've applied for more water mains, but, they're not interested in giving repeat funding. They, now Congresswoman Stevens, they need to spread the money around to all of their constituents. So, unlikely. We have applied to the State Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund. That's where most of the infrastructure fund money is being funneled through to states. The feds gave the money to the state revolving loan funds, but it's nowhere near enough to fund all of the lead service requirements throughout the state. It's something like 20% of what the total cost is. And the state prioritizes disadvantaged communities, which is basically a community that has a median household income of $50,000 or less. We'll talk about this more in a second, but Pleasant Ridge, we're $122,000 median income. We're the 21st most affluent community in the state. We're in the top 1.1%. So they highly privilege underprivileged communities in their funding awards. The state did take $1 billion of supplemental award and give that to the revolving loan fund from some of the other ARPA money that they had. So there's a chance. Our initial scoring was just below a funding cutoff. So we're hopeful with that additional money that we'll be able to get in, even if it's in the form of one of the low interest loans without much grant funding. We'd still take the money to just get the project done sooner. Lock it in at today's rates, and then we can finance it out for 20 or 30 years on the state's dime at very low interest rates. The reason we couldn't do that in the past is we looked at bonding for this, but there's a debt cap that each community can take on, and this project well exceeded our debt cap because we don't have enough taxable value to be able to bond for the whole project, and we didn't want to bond for half the project and then stop and then start replacing service lines and water mains again 15 years from now. Because, how do we, this street gets their water main replaced, but the rest of, that wasn't something we wanted to do. So the revolving loan fund money would allow us to do the whole project not in 1 year. We can't replace the entire water system in 1 year, but
But not 20.
it'd be over the course of 5 years, most likely. So that's where we're at. We're just waiting for this next round of scoring for the drinking water revolving loan fund. And then absent that, the plan is, if all of that falls through, then probably what we look at doing is completing some of these projects and paying down the total project cost. And then at that point, we could look at bonding to finish the project more quickly ahead of time, once we can do that. But, interest rates are not advantageous anymore for bonding, so we have to wait for all these different variables to sort of line up before we can start accelerating things.
Thanks, Jim.
And one quick follow-up question. As far as starting the Kensington project on a parallel path with our money and Fed money, I know that's not possible, but can you explain why that's not possible? Like, if we're waiting, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's 2/3 of Kensington's coming from Pleasant Ridge, 1/3's coming from Feds.
Yeah.
If we have 2/3 of the funding in place, couldn't we get contractors on retainer, get them working, and, like if we have 2/3 of the funding already in place, how can we get it started sooner?
Right.
That
So
makes sense.
the issue with that is that doesn't meet the federal bidding requirements.
So, like, even if the contractor were to follow all the federal bidding like, if we have a list of the requirements and they're following the requirements throughout.
Right, but we don't have the final requirements until we get the approved grant.
Right.
until the grant documents are in place, we don't have basically their blessing to go out to bid.
Got it. And if something
And-
comes up in one of these studies that needs to be treated specially,
Right.
we wouldn't know about that until.
And sometimes different federal contracts have different bidding requirements you have to follow. So it would be a risk that we would be taking on to try to anticipate what those were, and then if they didn't, so if we didn't meet the the federal requirements.
And it's better to wait because we know that next year we'll be ahead of the curve anyway. So even if Kensington waits, we're still getting ahead of the game by next year.
Right.
As I understand it.
In terms of our replacement schedule?
Exactly.
Yes. And so a water main project is difficult because there's not really any kind of phasing you can do.
It's all
You start the project and you do the project because we're directional drilling. We're not excavating. This is going to be much like the Consumers Energy when they were replacing the gas lines last year. The process is very similar, where you dig a few potholes along the street and directional drill the new water main under the outside of the street. Basically, we'll be going on the sidewalk on the other side of the street from where the gas main is, and then you have to pull or directionally drill the new service leads. It's part of the reason why we can't do partial replacements on the service lines because the public lead is going to be changing location. So even if we change the private side portion, you still have to replace the public portion. So it doesn't work when you're moving the location to do partial projects or part of the work. So there's really no good way to phase this out, to take something out of the federally funded project and start working on our own. There's really nothing to do.
Got to cut the whole check.
Yeah, exactly. This is something that happens all at once.
Thank you.
Any other items for public discussion? Oh, sir.
Good evening to the Honorable Mayor, City Commission, and all the city people. My name is Christopher Johnson. I'm sure you all have received an email from me. I am the district liaison for Senator Mallory McMurrow, and she extends her greetings to you all. And I just wanted to introduce myself and let you know that we are here. We know you're here. I've met a couple of you before at various different meetings. Miss Perry, I've met. So, and I just wanted to like I said, introduce myself and then basically tell you some of the committees that she's on. She's chair of the Economic and Community Development, chair of Appropriations, which you guys sound like you guys might want to work on that one there. Joint Commission on Administrative Rule. She's also Vice Chair of Oversight, Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, which is LEO, and Michigan Economic Development Corporation, MDC. And of course, you've been seeing all the things that they've been working on lately, so I won't go into all of those. But if you have any questions for our department, for our office, feel free to reach out to me. Like I said, I've emailed each and every one of you, so you have my information and you have the office information. We are here to do what we can, and I'm sure eventually Senator will be here herself. But as you know, at the beginning of the year, they're quite busy.
Yeah.
But she just wanted me to let you know that she is here, and she takes her areas very serious in the 8th District.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
And we're not shy, so we'll be in touch.
Great.
Thank you.
We may have discussed funding needs for lead service line replacement.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
I went to the Senator's Town Hall at the Royal Oak High School a couple weekends ago, and it was great. I mean, it was interesting to hear her talk about, so many different topics that, people had questions about. There was a great attendance, and it was good. I was able to talk to, some of your other staff members about a gun safety law called Donna's Law that people are very interested in because it's sort of a good a mental health one that sort of could help with suicide prevention and things like that. And I appreciate you guys taking the information and listening to that too. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. And I've also been a part of Oakland County Moms, so
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
All right. On to City Commission liaison reports. Commissioner Budnick.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, everybody, fasten your seatbelts.
It's
It
summer.
is springtime.
First, the Spring Summer Ridger is online and was delivered last week, so there are many important things for the residents to know that are included in that. As Ted Zachary had already touched on, celebrating Earth Day is coming up, Saturday, April 22nd. Celebrate and help the earth by placing usable items at the curb on this day from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., as Mr. Zachary noted. It could be a toaster oven, a lamp, trampoline. I can see you two worked coordinated very well. So instead of being tossed in the trash, it'll be reused. So reduce, reuse, recycle, regift, respect, rejoice, repeat. Be sure to check the Facebook link that Shawnee mentioned to list your address or to check the free cycle map. Next up, citywide garage sale is coming up. That's May the 13th, and the cost is $25. Signs are available for sale beginning April the 3rd. You must be registered by May 11th, 5 p.m. to be included on the map. Signs are for sale at City Hall and the Community Center. 50 and up club trips are already booking up fast, so if anyone is interested in joining in all the fun, don't delay. Registration is happening for youth adult tennis lessons, group exercise classes, and water aerobics. And swim lesson registration begins May the 29th. I know we'll have another meeting before then, but just kind of getting that out there now ahead of time. And in bold, renew your pool tags Monday through Thursday, May 1st through the 18th this year during open hours at the rec center. Bring your picture ID with you. You'll need your Pleasant Ridge address and your pool pass to renew for returning residents, and the new residents will be issued a new pass. To expedite the lines, pool tags will not be renewed during pool time slots, and there's a $10 replacement fee per pool pass if you lose it. 2023 pool tags, please don't throw them out. They are renewable. I like how you tied that in, Shawnee, with the, Earth Day. They're renewable. Well done. In other good news, we'd like to welcome 3 new recreation commissioners. We have Don St. Aubin, Aaron Gregorio, and Amy Miller. So we welcome them all to the Recreation Commission. The next meeting is Wednesday, April the 26th. And finally, I have an ad hoc email. We have, the pool process has started, believe it or not. So I guess with all this warm weather, it's probably in the air. Company will be here to open the pool. The deck chairs will be laid out and staff will start to be trained. And I know Greg is not here because he is doing interviews for lifeguards.
And we already put out the deck chairs today.
Wow.
Look at that.
Yay.
And real-time updates.
Real-time updates.
So I think that's it. And thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions for Commissioner Budnick? All right, on to Commissioner Perry for Planning and DDA.
Thank you, Mayor. So the Planning Commission and DDA will be meeting on Monday, April 24th, right here at City Hall at 7 p.m. They want to welcome new Commissioner Scott Galloway to the Planning Commission and DDA. And yeah, hopefully you can join us. We'll be here. I'll be excited to see what our agenda is. So, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schmier for the Historical Commission.
Thank you, Mayor. So our meeting this month was pushed back from last week until tomorrow because of Passover. So I don't have any big updates, but we too will be welcoming 3 new members, Sarah, Lauren, and Mark. So that is very exciting. Also, the Historic Museum will be open this Saturday, right? The 15th, from 10 until 12. So come by, stop by, check out your folder. And then the last thing I think would be the Home and Garden Tour. We're pretty set with houses, but there's always room for more. So if anyone was thinking about it and now definitely wants to do it, please give me a call or reach out to anyone on the Historical Commission. And that is all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lenko in Public Schools.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Couple big points. The biggest one, Ferndale basketball team won Division II state championships. So
Yay.
fly high. That's super cool. And on that news, there's going to be a parade on Friday from 1 to 3. Right?
Probably with the state champion marching band. And
That's right. I was going to touch on, and then Winter Guard too. So
Long list
there's
of
been
folks.
a lot of
Swimmers?
success
Robotics.
Yeah.
in the Ferndale schools. So been a great year.
Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your
No,
thunder.
no, exactly. And that was part of the point Robert was making, is that there's so much success that
Yeah.
we don't want to just laser focus on the basketball. But
So it's 1 to 3?
I think so. You told me based on the Facebook post.
Right.
Robert hadn't provided that to me yet. So
I sent you an email.
whatever's on Facebook is the correct answer. But it's Friday from, Pavilon to the high school. And then the other big piece, and Robert brought this up last time, was the meet and greet kind of coffee hour. What they've landed on is it's called like a State of the Union for the schools, which will be hosted on the 20th from 6 to 7:30.
Okay.
At the
April
Nest.
20th? April 20th?
April 20th.
Okay.
I think it's a Thursday
Yep.
in a couple weeks. And there's going to be a short presentation and networking. So I mean, it is going to be that face-to-face like meet and greet, but also there will be some sort of presentation as well. So yeah, please come if you're available to join. And again, as always, the school board meetings are published on the website on YouTube, and the e-blast is a very helpful resource too. So I recommend going out to the Ferndale Public Schools website and checking out the e-blast and the school board meetings.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
All right. On to governmental reports.
Thank you. I'll sleep. I'll make sure I don't fall. I think I'm the only one here, so I think I'm going to take everybody's time. Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
If you haven't noticed, there's a banner in Stevenson Park here, because April is National Distracted Driving Awareness Month. So we hung a banner. Hopefully you're not distracted by it. I thought of that, but it's in view of driving, so you're not looking down or at your phone, because I thought this is kind of
Ironic.
yeah, that you'd place a banner and distract people from looking at the road. So they want us to read just a couple statistics, if I may. Distracted driving is one of the fastest growing safety issues on the roads today. Distracted drivers are not just threats to themselves, but they're a danger to everyone else on the road. In support of National Distracted Driving Awareness Month, law enforcement agencies across the country are teaming up with the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning for a high visibility effort. So you'll see more officers taking enforcement action and seeing. Unfortunately, it seems like we always see them when you're in your personal car or you're driving. Anybody that drives has seen people on the phone, texting, driving, stopped at a light, they don't realize the light's changed, then causes road rage. So to help keep road users safe, we're reminding people about the dangers of distracted driving. The goal of this initiative is to reduce traffic crashes caused by distracted drivers, ultimately preventing injuries and deaths associated with cell phone use and texting while driving. Just a couple brief statistics. In Michigan in 2021, 5.9% of all Michigan crashes involved a distracted driver, so almost 6%. There were also 16,543 motor vehicle crashes in 2021 involving a distracted driver, and 59 of those resulted in fatality. It's not ironic, but it explains a lot. 6% of the drivers are under the age of 21, but 18.1% of the distracted driving crashes involve drivers under 21. So in 2021, there were 1,263 rear-end crashes where a driver was using a cell phone. In 2021, among drivers under the age of 21 involved in crashes, the rate of driver distraction was, again, 6%. So it was only 3.5% in people over 21. And then nationally, it's really high. It's 32,400 people died in distracted driving crashes over a 10-year period from 2011 to 2020. So that's why we want to make people aware that nothing's that important. I know there's new technology that you can voice text and stuff, but that still takes your eyes off the road and concentration. We encourage you, if you got to take a call or answer something, pull over to the side or stuff. We frequently see that. On Woodward, on side streets, we pull up next to somebody, go check if they're okay, and they go, nope, just answering a call or texting, which is what we encourage. So just be aware, hopefully everybody that's watching, obviously it's more teen drivers who just got to put that info out there. You know, they got to think they'd be relevant and stuff, and you can't wait a couple minutes. So, secondly, you know how you always hear me preach about locking your car. Commissioner Lenko's laughing because he has a hand in this. At the February meeting, Commissioner Lenko presented me with this, and then I haven't had the time to bring it back. But it goes along with me always telling people to lock their cars. This manual is a Studebaker manual from 1928, excuse me. And it addresses on page 3 to lock your car. So if I could be brief, I just want to read you a quick part because it's quite humorous that even in 1928, there were people stealing from people's cars. And it goes on to state, if your car is stolen, you may have to miss an appointment, ride home in a train or trolley, or give up that motor trip. You'll have to do that without a car until the insurance company settles, the car is recovered, or until you can get delivery of a new car. You may not lose a cent if the car is covered by insurance, but there's the nuisance of filling out insurance blanks, to say nothing of the loss of time, temper, patience, and possible damage by a joyrider. Locking is part of parking. So be sure to lock your car. And it ends with, why help the criminal?
There
So
you go.
thank you for that. This was my visual aid, not to steal any thunder from you, Mr. Zachary. I could put it out at the curb on the date if somebody wants it, or I could put that, you called dibs on the trampoline already. I don't know if you want it back, but
No, yeah, it's yours.
thank you for that. It was, that you thought of me when you saw that and read it and actually spent money. He spent money on it to purchase it, by the way, as
It was
well.
at John King's. It was a good find.
So-
Reuse.
There it is.
John King's is a
Reuse.
treasure chest.
So that's all.
And
Oh,
I had
ahead.
another thought kind of on that tangentially, but on internet security and locking down your Wi-Fi networks, et cetera. We know all of these attacks are done using, people's Wi-Fi, like the Internet of Things devices, et cetera, that are unlocked, and they run the DDoS attacks, et cetera. So that's another reason to have strong passwords on your internet stuff and do all your updates too.
And you've seen a push, it's almost tax day, the
Oh,
end.
right. Yep.
So that's a prime thing of identity theft and stuff. We encourage you to get something, without naming brand names or whatever. But there are a whole lot of apps and things that you can put on for your phone, because there are people out there that are just waiting to steal your stuff. So, Fire Chief, Ferndale Fire Chief Robinson was sick. She wanted me to reach out and say that she was unable to attend, and she expresses her regrets, but she didn't really have anything to add, so she's not going to be here.
Okay. I attended a traffic safety conference last week in New York as part of the New York Auto Show. And the statistics around accidents are just kind of alarming and how they've gone up since COVID. And part of it is distracted driving and just people having picked up new behaviors. So it's good to just remind us all to think about how we're driving.
Yes, there was never a box for that to check off on the computer when you hand wrote it out for distracted driving till, the evolution more of the cell phone, and unfortunately now it is. And obviously dating back to 2011, that's, I think, 32,000, that's a lot of deaths that could have been prevented.
Right.
So, yes,
Thank
please
you.
be aware.
And COVID rage? Is that what we're calling it? COVID rage?
Oh, my goodness.
Distracted driving. It's actually interesting that there is like a number associated with it, because we definitely are seeing it. I mean, we
Yeah.
see it. We all talk about it. I mean, we see it when we're driving. So
And miles driven went down. Like miles driven went down during COVID and deaths went up.
Went up.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you.
All right. Consent agenda. May I have a motion?
Mayor, I move that the consent agenda be approved.
Second.
Any thoughts or comments? May I have a vote?
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmier?
Yes.
Commissioner Budnick?
Yes.
Commissioner Lenko?
Yes.
Mayor Scott?
Yes, and the motion carries. And on to the comparative financial review.
Yeah. This is something we do every year. Normally, I do a version of this during the initial budget presentation in May. This year, I figured I'd get it out of the way early. But we expanded it a little bit, too. It's something I always like to do as a benchmark, just to compare kind of where we are compared to all the other communities in Oakland County, and just as a temperature check. So let's start at the beginning. We talked about this earlier, just in context for median household income. Oakland County has 5 of the wealthiest counties in the state in terms of median household income. We are 21st, and I think Birmingham, I'm sorry, the top 22. I think Birmingham is slightly behind us. This data is actually from Eagle, from their lead service line. They collected all of this data because of their requirement for household income as a benchmark for their scoring criteria. But you can see that there's a jump, there's a kind of a smooth increase, and then there's the 5 communities. And I think it's also interesting that Pleasant Ridge, Huntington Woods, Bloomfield Hills, Orchard Lake are some of the smallest communities in the county too. So when you look at total city revenue per capita, and all of these are per capita, a few of them are per household when we look at revenues. This is just a way of cross-cutting, because obviously Birmingham and Troy and Rochester Hills have a lot more total revenue than Pleasant Ridge, but when you break that down per capita, it's a way of normalizing this to some extent. So this is what each city collects per capita to run city operations. And you can see, again, this is a little more clustered. We are on the higher end of that, but comparable to Huntington Woods, Royal Oak, Ferndale. There's a big southeastern Oakland County cluster right around us. Property tax revenue per capita. Again, we are in with a similar crowd that we've been in the previous couple of slides. And you'll see that, again, these a lot are smaller communities. Sylvan Lake pops up here. They're another small community. And then Birmingham just has very high property values. We'll talk about more of that in a second as well. One thing I think that's important to point out is that different communities have different funding profiles. This shows the bottom axis. The x-axis is your residential taxable value share. So how much of your tax value is residential?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I think that's been studied and proven out over a long period of time is that, generally speaking, in most communities, residential land uses, single-family residential land uses, consume about $1.30 in public services for every dollar in tax revenue that they generate. Whereas commercial and industrial property consume about 30 cents or 50 cents of public services for every dollar of tax revenue they generate. Most communities where you have a mixture of land uses, this means that your non-residential land uses subsidize the cost of services towards residential land uses. But when you have communities that are highly residential, and these are Orchard Lake, Huntington Woods, and Pleasant Ridge, the little cluster of 3 over there on the far right side that are 95% residential, you'll see that there's a very clear clustering of higher property tax revenue per capita. Because we are more dependent on higher property taxes to fund public services. We don't have the subsidy from non-residential land uses.
Is the tall in Birmingham?
Yeah. And I think it's also interesting, this is the value per acre. This is another way of normalizing property values in a community. Similar to doing per capita, this is per acre. So what this means is when you have smaller lots, like we have a lot of 50-foot lots, and then you go to Rochester Hills where the house probably costs more, but it's on a 90 or 100-foot wide lot at half an acre or more, the tax revenue that's generated by that land is obviously different. It's like farming. We are farming a more efficient crop down here in Pleasant Ridge because we have high-value houses on smaller lots. And this has implications for delivery of public services. Rochester Hills actually has terrible residential streets because they don't generate enough revenue to maintain their residential streets. It took them 25 years. And I say this because I work there, so I know the story in Rochester Hills. I'm not trying to pick on them, but there were 25 years of street millages that failed there until the streets got so bad that they finally passed one. And it's, when you look at the, if you have 50 feet of street, you have to maintain that. And if you have one house on that 50 feet, it's easier to generate the revenue than it is if you have a third of a house that's on that 50 foot of street. The street costs the same to rebuild. So it's just an efficiency thing. But the real thing is when you look at commercial, and here the story is really clear. Ferndale, Royal Oak, Birmingham, downtown Rochester, those are real peaks in terms of generating tax revenue and all of that subsidy that then provides to the residential land uses in those communities. Birmingham has a much lower millage rate than we do because, one, they have the commercial property providing revenue, and two, their property values are just so much higher that the dollar value that generates is there. But this is off on a tangent, but this is something that I was working on a few years ago, actually during COVID, when I had time to think about things for a little bit. But I think it's interesting that you look at Somerset Mall, maybe one of the highest value malls in the country, and how that compares to downtown Birmingham, just in terms of efficiency and tax revenue. So there's a real case. There's a real case for walkable, dense development. Obviously, it's not for everywhere, but it certainly pays the bills. So another way of breaking this down and looking at it and benchmarking where we sit is property tax revenue per capita by population. So this is taking all the Oakland County, and now instead of ordering it by percent residential, this is by total city population. And the best analogy I've ever heard for running a city is it doesn't matter if you're a city of 2,000 people or 90,000 people. It's like flying a plane. You have to provide all the same services. You have to have wings, you have to have a pilot, you have to have landing gear, you have to have propulsion, whether you're 2,000 people or 90,000 people. So there's a baseline cost. And I think it plays out pretty well that you see once you get above about 10,000 people, it's a pretty clear $500 to $1,000 property tax revenue per capita that you generate to operate the city. Again, that outlier at 22,000 is Birmingham. But once you're below that 10,000 number, it's more costly per person to run a city because we have to have a DPW, we have to have a police department, we have to provide all of those things. One of the ways of looking at this is how many police per residence, how many police officers per resident you have. And I went and I looked through at a few communities, I think, that were representative of the three kind of parts of this graph. And we here in Pleasant Ridge have one full-time police officer for every 375 people, for every 375 residents. Ferndale, at around 20,000 people, has one officer for every 550 residents. And then Troy has one officer for every 755 residents. So the largest part of your police department cost is personnel, salaries, benefits. And it's twice as efficient to run a police department in Troy and have 24/7 coverage as it is in Pleasant Ridge, just as a function of our size. We have 7 full-time police officers because that's what you need to have a 24/7 department and be able to staff it full-time. So that's just an example of, the efficiency kind of, where that starts to come into play. And we are at 2,600 people, an inefficient size for delivering public services in the most efficient capacity. And I think, again, this graph shows that once you're, down towards that 2,000 to 5,000 range, the cost per resident go up. Huntington Woods, Bloomfield Hills, Orchard Lake, we're all clustered right in that same area. So when you look at total revenue, this is not just property taxes, but total revenue. We are here, and some of these other communities are much higher, Birmingham. But this takes into account all sources of revenue. Again, same thing, all the dots just kind of move up a bit. So flipping to the expenses side, this is what the city spends, not just revenues. Again, you see that we are clustered again, Ferndale, Pleasant Ridge, Hazel Park, Orchard Lake, Royal Oak, Huntington Woods. So we have lower expenses per capita than Huntington Woods, which is the first benchmark I always look at. They're the most similar community to us. They are 2.5 times the size, so their efficiencies are a little higher. Lathrop Village is the one I also look at because they're about the same population as we are. So we're all clustered right there. When you look at total expenses per capita by median household income, again, you see that, the more affluent communities have higher expenses per capita, but we are the bottom end of that. And another way of expressing this is how affordable is the community, is the costs to run the community for the people who live there. So this is the total expenses per household as a percentage of household income. So if we have $2,600 of expenses per capita, that translates to a per household cost. What percent is that of the annual household income? So I'm curious where you think we fall on this one.
I'm thinking yeah.
Gave away the answer.
Oh, yeah, I was really gonna guess.
Yeah. So if you look at this, so yes, we have costs, but as a measure of affordability for the residents who live here and the household incomes we have, we're at the lower end. So this is a function, obviously, of the household income you have, and you see that Orchard Lake, Pleasant Ridge, then Birmingham, Huntington Woods, they're about 1% higher than we are, and they're kind of comparable communities for household income. When you order that by median household income, again, you can kind of see that relationship play out. So what drives our expenses? What is it that we are spending money on? Well, police expenses per capita, again, is where a large part of our general fund budget goes. And to the point, again, about the size of the community driving costs per capita, Orchard Lake is about the same population that we are. Lathrop Village is about the same population as we are. So there's just a cost to being a small community and having your own 24/7 police department that you can't get around. These communities have public safety departments, so we'll get to that in a second. So if you break it down again by population and per capita costs, you see that tendency. There's a sort of a general trend line that declines as you gain population. So this is total public safety expenses per capita. This is police and fire per capita. So here we are in the middle of the pack. And part of the reason for that is that we don't operate our own fire department. So, the police are here 24/7. That's something that the community highly values. It's something that is extremely important. And that's why a lot of small communities keep their own police department. Fire is not something that, you have people out patrolling the streets every day, interacting with residents. It's something that's there when you need it. So for us and a lot of other small communities, we partner with neighboring communities for fire services. And that's where we see a reduced cost. If we were to run our own fire department, our cost would be probably closer to Bloomfield Hills. Because again, buying a new
The
fire.
truck alone would be $2 million.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Ferndale and Pleasant Ridge, we have fairly similar per capita expenses for public safety because we partner with Ferndale. And I think it's beneficial to them that we provide some revenue that they can use to, reduce the costs, and they're there when we need them. So again, when we look at by population per public safety expenditures per capita, it's a tighter cluster. The other place is parks and recreation expenses per capita. And the lesson here is if you want to be a small community with a pool, there's a cost. The pool is about $100 per capita per resident per year to run and operate. So if we got rid of our pool, we would be down there with the Farmington Hills and Birminghams and Rochester Hills of the world in our parks and recreation expenses. It's a fact of life. We've chosen to have a pool, and we have the tax, we have the millage to operate it and to pay the debt on it.
And the Huntington Woods cost is higher up there, but they pay an annual fee. So that is not including their annual, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, it should not, no.
Yeah, so they have the annual, so they're actually off the chart,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. So again, when you look at per capita, here it's an interesting one. It's the inverse of what we've seen in a lot of cases. Larger communities actually spend a little bit higher proportion per resident on recreation. The trend line here is increasing. Public works expenses per capita. Two things I want to point out first. Pontiac, Kego Harbor, these are communities that the Water Resource Commission owns and operates the entire water system. So total public works expenses includes water system expenses and revenues. Those are not reflected in these two communities' financials. And all this data comes from the state F-65s. It's a report that's filed with the Michigan Department of Treasury. You can look up an F-65 for any community. And you have to report it that way as a way of standardizing. Every community does its books a little bit differently, has different fund structures, but the F-65 normalizes that. So those costs are not represented for Kego Harbor and Pontiac. So when you see those outliers in this particular instance, that's why they don't have those costs. Again, per capita by population, the same thing. You know, we're on the higher end, but as a smaller community, there's a clustering at the higher end, which decreases over time as you get larger. So that's the real big takeaways. The good news is we're not extraordinary in our costs. We are pretty comparable to other communities that have the same profile as we do, whether it be household income or size. Those are the two main drivers. And the choices we've made as a community for the things we want to provide, the services we want to have as a small community. Highly residential communities just have a higher property tax burden for residents. When you have to bear the full cost of that services to residents, that means that you pay when you don't have commercial and industrial to subsidize it. But again, we have fairly low costs, lower than average for municipal costs as a percentage of household income. So that's that. I don't know if you have any thoughts or questions about that, but we don't have to go through that next month now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the statistic is about 70% of Michigan cities are small, like fewer than 5,000. But most of them aren't in the middle of suburban or urban areas, so they don't have, a lot of them are on wells and
Right.
don't have pools and share fire and police, or, you know, in some kind of collaborative arrangement. So we are a little unique in that way,
Yes.
being so small and yet having all of the services and add some
Yeah.
in comparison to our neighbors.
There's a lot of those rural communities that have county police, and you know, they have a regional fire consortium that they use. Yeah, so that definitely changes the profile.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions?
thank
for
you.
him?
Thank you. No, very interesting.
Regarding the content, I love it. Thank you. Regarding the format, and we had kind of talked about doing a dashboard previously. I think this is kind of like, this would be it. Like, this would be kind of the backbone or framework for that. As you were going through, I was imagining, like, what if you could hover over, because I noticed, obviously for clutter, we couldn't have all the cities labeled, et cetera, but like, would there be a way to incorporate data into those images where if you hover over a dot, it says, you know, Pleasant Ridge XYZ, Huntington Woods XYZ?
Yeah, so those are the ones that had two axes. The ones where they were labeled as it was just one.
Correct,
you know,
yeah, there
one
were some that were labeled and some that weren't, and obviously for readability, you can't label them all, but like, I think that would be the dashboard, like 95% there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have the capability. I don't have the technical capability.
Okay, no, I like
to do
I
that.
don't mean to like brainstorm right here, but I think this is a good starting point, and with like ChatGPT and another person or two, we could figure this out. So
Yeah. I mean, the data's there.
okay,
I don't know how to package it that way, but somebody does.
all right, we'll talk. Sweet.
Okay.
Cool. On to the city manager's report.
Yeah. We've done Kensington.
Yeah?
Oh, well, yes. We talked about these as well. Other items, so it's getting to be construction season, so we're planning out our 2023 street work to try to figure out what we're going to tackle. We do have about $150,000 of sidewalk work that we're planning on doing as well. So you may have noticed some dots on sidewalks around town. The last sidewalk project we did was in 2019, so it's been about 4 years. We had the city engineer go through with our criteria, our replacement criteria, and identify sidewalk flags that were ready or needed to be replaced. And based on 2023 costs, which are much higher than they were in 2019, we have about $150,000 of work. So we're planning on getting that done here as well. We are unique in Pleasant Ridge. We're, I think, one of, if not the only community that does not assess the cost of that to the homeowner. We have the infrastructure millage, and this is one of the things we cover with that infrastructure millage. So that's one benefit of, I guess, being in Pleasant Ridge. You pay for it, but we all pay for it collectively rather than individual homeowners having to deal with that. The Woodward Avenue Cycle Track, that is the cycle track project on the east, on the northbound side of Woodward from Sylvan to 696, was bid out. There was a acceptable bid. MDOT has not awarded the contract for that yet, so I don't have a start date for that project, but we will be doing that this year, and I'll keep you posted on when that develops and what the impact of that's going to be. And then finally, we do have some sewer lining work. As you know, we maintain our sewers every year. We have gone through and cleaned and televised them all on a rotating 10-year schedule. So we've been going through and addressing any areas that needed to be touched up in the sewers. Generally, those are in fine shape. But we've been doing a lot of sewer lining where you actually go in and they put a liner on the inside of the sewer, and it strengthens it and repairs it from the inside. Not this past winter, but 2 winters ago, end of 2021, you'll recall we had to excavate some sections on Oakland Park because they were too malformed or damaged to take a liner. So we did some spot repairs on Oakland Park to repair those sections, and then we'll be doing the lining this year on Oakland Park and Elm Park. So we'll be lining some sections where we've replaced a small segment of the sewer. Now we'll be lining these sections. So it goes from about 21 Oakland Park down to 15 Oakland Park, and then there's another liner that goes from 13 down to, the end of the circle at Stevenson. And then on Elm Park, it's a segment from 17, again, down to the nose of the island. This is a fairly unobtrusive process. There's some trucks that are on the street. They're working in one of the manhole accesses. They put the liner in, they inflate it and harden it with steam. Residents will not be able to or shouldn't use their plumbing excessively while this is happening because they have to go through and they have a robot that cuts holes where the private accesses are. But it takes, it's maybe a day for that to happen. So we've done it at a number of other locations in the city, and it's worked well. So it's not as obtrusive as tearing up a street or anything. It's just some trucks, really.
Yeah. And if you've never actually watched one of these videos where they install, it's actually an interesting.
Super cool to
It's
watch.
actually cool to watch.
As you were saying it, I was thinking like I should go watch it, but it's underground, so I can't see it. But no, it looks super cool.
Yeah, it's a CIPP is the acronym. So if you just Google CIPP, there's all kinds of interesting videos you can watch about it.
Oddly satisfying.
Yeah, it is. I feel like I do, yeah.
And the residents will get a note ahead of time, sort of
Yeah.
warning them of the timing.
Yes, of course, yep. We always provide advance notice to residents about the project, and then when there's impacts on them.
Great. Thank you.
And the interesting thing about this aerial is the tennis court at 11 Elm Park really
Yeah.
stands
Yeah,
out.
I was looking at that.
It does.
Yeah.
Not sure which color scheme they picked for that. It's not the Wimbledon. It's
It is blue.
not the French. I don't know if that's the U.S. or the Australian, but. So yeah, more information on that. We don't have that work scheduled. We have a contractor in line. Oakland County Water Resources Commission had a number of contractors that they used for this. They had one who was willing to cooperatively extend their bid to us on favorable terms. So we're working with them to get this final contracted and set up. So it's coming, but just I wanted to give an overview of all of the 2023 work that's on
It's
the
on the
dockets.
way.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or anything else happening around town?
No, nothing
Okay.
I can think of.
That's all I have.
I think we're on to other business.
Is there other business?
No, sir.
Mayor?
Yes.
Hey. So with other business, we're still working on Porch Sessions, Pleasant Ridge version of that for August 26th. Jessica Wright is a resident who is in a local band, and she is helping put this together of doing outdoor concerts on different people's front porches and stuff. You can go on Facebook. There is a website for, it's called Porch Sessions Pleasant Ridge. Again, the date is August 26th. Don't hesitate to reach out. You can message Jessica through that site, or also you can send me an email on my Pleasant Ridge email at aperry@cityofpleasantridge.org, and we can get all your questions answered. she'll have each of the anybody who would like to perform, she'll have them submit a video and stuff like that. So it should be a nice day of music in Pleasant Ridge that'll be, on several different locations and front porches. But let us know if you have any questions. And that's all I have.
Cool, thank you.
Oh, the other thing I do have, is, we have the auction coming up for the Pleasant
Right.
Ridge Foundation auction. So, one of the things that has helped the foundation be so successful is all of, because we are all part of the foundation. And so it's all of us coming together and doing, as parts of our streets, or maybe part of a club or group that you're in, a mom's club or the swim club, come up with a basket or some donation for the auction. They would really appreciate it, because that's the really fun stuff to bid on also. There'll be, I think, I'm not exactly sure of the format. I think you'll be able to bid online, even if you can't go to the auction, which is on May 20th. But up at the community center. But so any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me or any of the foundation people but it's just a good example is the Wellesley basket. They started doing a whiskey basket where several different residents either donate money or a fun bottle of whiskey, and they put it together in a groovy whiskey barrel, and always
So put it out on your Facebook pages, like your street Facebook pages too. It's really easy to coordinate and just
it's easy. It's something where even if you can get a bunch of residents to donate $5 a piece, and then you go get a gift certificate for, someplace like Imperial or wherever, a restaurant or a fun, maybe it's axe throwing or any type of fun weird event. I'm coming up with very strange ones at the moment, but it makes a big difference. And it's all of us really are part of the foundation, and this helps bring amazing things to the city, like, enhancing our parks, things like, new deck chairs at the pool, or, they're going to help with our
Scoreboard.
yeah, and the swimming scoreboard. And, they've made amazing, important donations. And they're really helping start and kick off the Arts Council for Pleasant Ridge. So it's important that we're all in it. You can still, I think tickets are still available, but they're selling quickly for May 20th. And, but yeah, let me know if you have any questions about gifts that you can donate and different things that you have. And, maybe we'll see if Senator McMorrow maybe has time for a resident to come and trail along with her for a day. That would be a very popular auction item. I'm sure she gets a lot of requests for that.
Call that number and we'll get that
Okay,
set up.
deal. And, so thank you. So everybody get your baskets ready. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.
Any other business?
Mayor, I had one more.
Oh, sure.
Thank you for bearing with me. One thing I wanted to shed light on that I forgot to earlier was, I'm sure you're all aware of the incident at Great Lakes Crossing that happened on Saturday. There was some violence at the food court, and then somebody yelled, "Shots fired," and it turned into a possible active shooter-assailant incident. And in light of recent incidents, like in Nashville a few days ago, in Louisville yesterday, or whatever, so know that, as you're aware, we belong to a consortium called OAKTAC. And when Auburn Hills first responded, they were there, and then it turned into a shooting incident, or possible shooting incident. Thank God nobody was hurt or shot. They put out a response, and Oakland County SWAT is automatically notified. We don't have anybody on that team, but we do belong to the OAKTAC consortium. It then elevated to that call out. So every city, village, township that's in OAKTAC has a duty to respond. So one of our officers, Officer Todd Tyler, was working Saturday, and it was at shift change, so he was able to go. In fact, I saw him on TV and everything. I'm like, way to hog the TV time. But with that consortium fee, which is only $250 a year that we pay, and I know initially everybody goes, well, why? What happens in Pleasant Ridge and stuff like that? Well, Pleasant Ridge is a small community, like the city manager said, with 7 officers. Should we have an incident, God forbid, anything happens, and we put out that OAKTAC call, we get the resources of every community that participates in Oakland County. So the response was overwhelming for that, agencies from all over. And we put what we, based on your size and manpower and equipment and everything else, so you say, we can promise at least one guy in a car and whatever equipment that you have and stuff. So thank God nothing happened, but Pleasant Ridge did respond. And part of that consortium duty that we have is we get that back, which is a huge,
great.
huge benefit in case, because we're small and have limited resources. So I just want to make you aware of that incident that did happen. Nothing happened there, though, thank God. We responded as per our commitment, and we got TV time. So,
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
It's good to know.
I think we're ready to adjourn. We have a motion to adjourn?
Move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. We drug that out a long time.